Welcome to your November 2020 edition of Playdate. I am Finn, your host, as always. I'm here today with Tim and Keith.
Hiyo.
We are on the eve of next gen. It's coming close. We're anticipating it. This will be the last Playdate that comes out before we are in the PS5 and Xbox Series X era. So yeah, very quickly, just to appreciate the gen that was. Tim, let's start with you. What was off the top of your head, what was your favorite game from this gen?
A lot of people would probably expect me to say something like Kingdom Hearts 3, but I'd say it was probably Spider-Man.
Ooh, okay. Very interesting. Probably, do you think it had the best feeling of any game this gen, at least in the PS4, right? Because again, the thing that I keep going back to with that game is that swinging through New York City is just unmatched in terms of how good it feels to be Spider-Man. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I actually just recently went back and played a little bit more of Spider-Man 2 on the PS2, and it's definitely more accessible in that game. It may not be as in-depth of a swinging system, but it's definitely more accessible, smoother, just kind of a ride more than like I'm going to sit here and mash buttons to swing all over 50 different directions. Some people might enjoy
that. Keith, what was your favorite game from this gen?
Much like Tim, most people would say, it'd probably be Final Fantasy VII Remake, but it's going to one of the games that I platinumed this year, and that's Ghost of Tsushima.
I didn't know you platinumed that game. That's interesting to me. I've had a few friends come up to me now, and generally the fact that it's a Sony first-party game is the seal of approval that a lot of people need to buy it. But there are some that are just like, hey, I never really got into Infamous. I don't know Sucker Punch's track record. So what would you say to those people to try to convince them that Ghost of Tsushima is worth their time?
I'm going to have to say, if they're in for a good story, then to play it, because the story for that is really, really dramatic and satisfying. If you like old Japanese movies, you're really going to like it.
Have you tried the black and white Kurosawa mode?
No, I have not.
Okay. It feels more like a novelty, right? But it's cool that they had that in there in the first place. But yeah, story-wise is something I was expecting. Could have gone either way with that game, right? It could have been like a mediocre story and really good just samurai combat, but I'm glad that they did maintain Sony's track record of good story-driven games. Speaking of which, and speaking of Spider-Man, we're recording this hot off the heels of today's showcase of the Spider-Man Miles Morales Into the Spider-Verse suit, which I have just been thinking about all day because it's nuts. Tim, did you see this, and what did you think about it?
So I didn't get to see the whole video, but I've definitely seen some of the clips that have been floating around on Twitter, and it's just crazy to me that they've gotten this to work. It's also funny to me to see as many people celebrating it as I have, because I also know that as generations have proceeded, people have gotten really snobby around like FPS, and everything has to be at 60 FPS.
Ooh, so, coming on with the hot takes already. All right, I like it. It's a spicy Tim today we're getting.
Well, and it's actually, I have some support of that, because I recently went back, I've been playing PS2 games recently, and so I went back and played Kingdom Hearts 2 on the PS2. They ruined the PS4 and the PS3 versions of that by making it 60 FPS, because the programming was tied to the frame rate.
Right.
So boosting it ruined certain mechanics, ruined certain reaction commands, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go back and order a Japanese copy of Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix and play it on PS2. But that's why I was surprised that people were so happy about this, because Suit is very much in a different, far lower frame rate for the sake of retaining the aesthetic style of Miles Morales, or not Miles Morales, but Spider-Verse.
For me, the thing that struck me, and this is probably the only parallel I can draw with this type of thing, is when they added Mr. Game & Watch to Smash Bros. And the way he plays, where obviously he's from a different era, and he's like stuttery, like intentionally by design in Smash Bros. But it's just to sort of match the authenticity of that character in that game. So that's what I thought of when I watched the Spider-Verse thing. It's a thing that they didn't have to do. They could have just added like the suit and have that be it. But the fact that they went this extra mile seemingly to add in this low FPS effect from a movie that's probably my favorite movie of all time. I mentioned this on Twitter. As soon as I get hold of this suit, which I'm hoping is immediately because it's bundled with the Ultimate Edition of Spider-Man, I am never taking it off. I am never going to wear another suit in that game.
Yeah, I was talking to my brother about it. I am very interested to see, though, what other suits they're going to come up with. Because, like, there was some good competition for best suit in the original Spider-Man game on PS4. Mm-hmm. So I expect that this isn't going to be, like, the only thing they have for us.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Like, again, aesthetics are a big thing with this version of Spider-Man that's not Peter Parker. They already sort of touched on it with the music being this mashup of orchestra and hip-hop and trap, just like nailing Miles Morales' unique vibe in Spider-Man. And so I have no doubt that with the costumes as well, they're going to nail that also.
And there's something else. I actually didn't get to double check on this, but did they have unique animations for this suit?
I have no idea. It definitely looked similar to like shots that I recognize in Spider-Verse. Whether that's just a coincidence, I have no idea. But I felt like there were moments in that showcase where I could have lined it up with shots in Spider-Verse and they were the exact same. But that might be just gut feeling.
Yeah, like I know that Spider-Man in PS4 was, like, Peter was dynamic in how he moved through the air. But some of the maneuvers that I saw Miles doing just in the clips that I saw were very much like things he was doing in Spider-Verse, and I need to go back and check whether or not he's doing any of those same movements in his base costume for the PS5.
Yeah, I think it's just, because, and this might just be, again, as you talk about, like, all his suits on PS5 and just the character of Miles, but I'm looking back at some clips and some GIFs that I made for the Playhouse Twitter, and, like, there's a few moments where he's in the air and his arms and legs, like...
Yeah, he's, like, flailing all around.
Yeah, and that, just reminded me of his youth and inexperience in the Spider-Verse movie, and so maybe there's some unique stuff there, but I don't know, that seems like almost too much extra effort, but who knows?
Yeah, and I hadn't actually seen also that they added the, like, onomatopoeia text to, like, whenever he punches people and everything, too.
Very neat. I did not see that.
Yeah, if you go back and watch any of the combat gameplay, he does, like, it says, like, whack and whip and all that stuff as he's doing stuff. It's pretty cool.
Awesome. Love to see it. So yeah, this is Playdate. This is your monthly roundup of what games we've been playing and what we wish to share and what we believe are good parts and bad parts of those games. So let's start off today by talking about a recent release. One that I've been keeping my eye on. I wasn't sure if I was going to pick it up for my fantasy league. I didn't in the end up. Might live to regret that. Tim, tell me about Ghostrunner.
First thing I'll say is cancel your pre-order for AAA companies that won't give you a game and give it to an indie company that gave you a game.
Damn, we are getting spicy, Tim, today. Oh. So this is... I remember the first time that we, as a group, saw this game was during the Future Game Show around when E3 was supposed to be, and we were doing reactions to that. And we all collectively gasped at how good it looked. we immediately drew comparisons with two things: Mirror's Edge and Genji from Overwatch. So yeah, how appropriate are those comparisons now that you've played it?
So I would say they're appropriate, but even more than those, having actually played it, I will officially call this game Cyber Meat Boy.
Ooh,
because
that's an interesting type.
It is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I call it Cyber Meat Boy is not just because it's difficult, but they also nailed what makes Super Meat Boy bearable and not like entirely like stupidly rage inducing, which is respawn time. You die,
Okay.
you are immediately back at checkpoint running again. Like it is
Awesome.
just a non-stop, like hard hitting action-packed game. I was surprised at the amount of blood in it. It is like it has the arcadey feel of like Super Meat Boy mixed with the arcadey feel of like Doom mixed with Mirror's Edge.
Huh. And that's definitely a choice they had to make, right? Because in a cyberpunk setting, you could get away with all the bad guys being robots and just when you slice them open, just like wires and stuff flashing. But no, the fact that like you thought it worthy to mention blood seems like they're going for gore.
Oh yeah, no, they have an option in the settings to actually turn the gore effect off. So it is very much
Okay.
something they put in there with intended effect.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember us seeing too much in promotional material things like the zip line or like the grappling hook that you get. So there will be specific grapple points and you can use it to maneuver certain areas. There is a extremely tight parry window on bullets to the point that they encourage you to use like a bullet time to get around enemies and dodge bullets rather than actually just trying to run head on into them.
Okay.
Then you would like the ability system, because the ability system they put in the game is you basically get a grid and Tetris blocks.
Okay.
And you have to fit Tetris blocks together in the grid to maximize the amount of space and abilities that you can put on at any time.
So real quick, one of the games I'll be talking about later today is Valkyria Chronicles 4, and it's funny that you mentioned that because that shares the same system where when you're doing tank upgrades, there's again a Tetris-style block thing, sort of like Resident Evil when you're managing your inventory where you have to fit things in the order.
I was streaming it in my Discord, and one of my friends said that it reminded him of Resident Evil. And I was like, oh yeah, totally. The attaché case.
Very cool. I love that. Just as like another little element, a bit more interesting than like a skill tree, say.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So in terms of like how the game works, is it again just like Super Meat Boy, you're playing level after level after level? Is it a bit more open? Is it a roguelike? You know, what are we getting into here?
So I'd say it's like Super Meat Boy, so it's level to level, pretty linear. There are items that you can find, which I did not know about until I unlocked the skill tree and found an ability that puts items on the map. So that already adds a level of replayability to me. Some of that is stuff like cosmetic changes for your sword and whatnot. Some of it is like little bits of lore. So like I found like a credit card, and it explains that because it's like a post-apocalyptic world, currency lost all value. Oddly enough, one of the things that became like bartering fodder was just old credit cards.
Cute. So yeah, I guess that sort of goes into story. Is there a story in this game, or is it just lore drops like that?
So there is a story, and it's interesting to me. I like these kinds of stories. Nier kind of does the same thing. It calls into question like where is like the border for like humanity, because the way the game seems to describe your character, the Ghostrunner, is that you are in the largest part a machine programmed to protect a dude named the Architect. the very opening cutscene is your character failing to protect the architect. The architect is already dead when you get there, and you get chucked out a window after losing your arm.
Mm-hmm.
And then a long time passes, you're out. I guess Resistance is trying to repair you, and they all die, but you wake up because someone calls to you, and you have like a new robotic arm attached. So it's just like try to get back up the tower while also trying to like save people, and it's basically what I've gotten out of it so far is, will you kind of cross that border towards being a human? Like, will you choose to operate on like human instinct and save people, or choose to operate on like a mechanical instinct and just go for the objective?
Cool.
Though you don't get a choice. It's very, very linear, but it's interesting to see the dynamic play out.
This is something I think is interesting, especially on the, I said on the heels, it's not come out yet, but on the, it got delayed. Soon to be released Cyberpunk, which I imagine is going to delve deep into that philosophy of what is the border for human versus cyborg. And then I imagine, assuming Cyberpunk is a success, there are going to be many follow-ups from other devs and other publishers that fit that cyberpunk theme and address those same questions. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. Ghostrunner, like, in terms of getting immersed in the cyberpunk world, and you're like leaping from building to building, running around all this, I assume Neo Tokyo style city. How good was that looking? How bright was it? How immersive was it?
I get like super hyper focused in when I'm playing it. Like
okay. I only see shapes. I do not see buildings. I see rectangles.
Well, so most of what it's not even like you're running around a whole city. In fact, the way that they describe this world, because I don't fully have my head wrapped around it, is basically it's not a city. It's like a giant mega structure of a tower. Like the architect, this character that you talk to, describes it as like, the Ghostrunner asks him, "Are you an AI?" And he says, "Well, you could say I'm an AI, like you could say that, I think it's called Dharma. I think that's what it's called." He says, "Just like you could call it a skyscraper." It's technically accurate, but it doesn't really get the whole picture across. So, like, there are different levels and sectors within this tower that house their own entire populations.
Very cool.
I think he said like 1 million people were in the tower. I think that's something they drop at one point in the game. So the whole game just takes place in this tower, and it's you going up and up and up and up and up until you can get to the usurper at the top, essentially.
Just real quick, how far are you in the game now?
So I think it was 6 out of 17 missions.
Okay. Do you think there will come a point where you're at chapter 15, say, and you just get like punched out a window to like level 1 of the tower?
If they did do that, I would say it becomes far less major of a deal, purely because the way that they've designed this game is as you're going up the tower, you're getting back abilities that you lost by getting knocked down, essentially.
Oh, okay. So you've already been knocked down. All right.
Yeah.
Tell me about the enemies. How varied are they? How much do they like play off each other, and how difficult are they to get past?
They start you off with just a basic type of enemy that is periodically shoots. So once every however many seconds, they just fire a shot at you. Those alone, as you're getting used to the game, can actually be overwhelming, because they'll shoot at you from different angles, and you might find that you dodge one bullet, but the way you dodged it put you in the path of another one, and you get hit, so you die. Because it's a one-hit kill. Everything's a one-hit kill in this game.
Cool.
But then as you go further, you get an ability that lets you slice through multiple enemies in a line and let you slice through their bullets while you're at it. So that's when they introduce like a rapid fire enemy, so that you have to use that ability to get through them because their tracking is really good, and even if you use bullet time to try to get around them, they'll just turn and keep firing. Then they introduce a melee variant, which will always jump at you, so you have to use like a dash to go to the side and slice him when he comes to jump at you. And then the latest one I've run into was a shield variant, so you can't attack from the fronts or the sides. You have to manage to get around to their back to slice.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's more waiting, because that's something they just keep hammering home, is like, as you go further up the tower, you are going to run into more and more and more difficult enemies. So I'm excited to see what that is.
Yeah. Difficulty is something you can get away with nowadays, I think, purely because lives as a concept are basically being phased out. And again, as you mentioned, the respawn is just like press R and you're right back in the action. So I feel like those are good things for games like this, which want to let you know that like it's gonna be difficult and you're gonna die a lot, but like it doesn't take away from the fun because you're not waiting. So that's cool. In terms of then level design is probably the biggest thing that I want to know what you think about this. Do you think this game takes a lot of inspiration from games like Mirror's Edge or other beat 'em ups or Super Meat Boy, or is it sort of more unique and innovative? And then, yeah, what would you say, like, if there are inspirations, what would you think those are, and how well are they executed?
So I haven't gotten to play Mirror's Edge Catalyst, the newest one. I would say that I've definitely seen some Mirror's Edge inspiration, and I imagine a lot of it has probably come from Catalyst, because I know Catalyst was more open world in its approach, as far as per level in this game. Because there's a lot of going to one place, backtracking. They've designed the levels to pretty much be self-explanatory in their pathing, with tiny little nooks and crannies for them to hide items in every once in a while. Pretty linear, pretty straightforward. So in that aspect, I'd say it's kind of like Super Meat Boy. Especially because they do not do the Mirror's Edge thing of highlighting like maneuverable obstacles in red. Everything is just relatively well incorporated into the world. You'll see like arrows on some plates, and it's like, oh, okay, I can run on that. But a lot of it is just kind of looking around the environment and finding things out. I have had more than a few deaths attributed to just me thinking I was going somewhere, not knowing where to go, and then just winging it and finding the right path through, making a mistake.
Purely because I want to hone the power of Spicy Tim today. At the end, when all's said and done, do you think that this or Cyberpunk 2077 will be the better made Cyberpunk game?
So you and I, though we have not been in professional studios, you and I both have experience with development. And so we both know how worrying some of the things that have been going on with Cyberpunk are from a developer standpoint.
Right.
So I am very tempted to say that this will end up being the better made Cyberpunk game, just because I am worried. And please put the pitchforks away. Like, I'm not saying this to be inflammatory or anything, but I'm worried that they're going to pull a Bethesda. I'm worried they're going to pull like Fallout 76 or some other terrible release with Cyberpunk, just because of the practices that have been going on from the management of the company.
That's definitely the answer I wanted to hear from you, because I had a feeling you would say something like that. To me, I could see it going that way. But CD Projekt Red also, and I'm talking about the development team rather than like project leads and stuff. Like from what I'm hearing from people who have relationships with those guys and stuff, they would be mortified to release anything that didn't match or exceed the reception of, say, The Witcher 3. And again, every time a delay comes, I'm like, I'm pro delay. As many times you need to delay, I'm good with. And this last one felt particularly well. I was like, okay, again, but also they explained it in the tweet where it's like there's like 9 different versions now, and they all are like completely different hardware at this point. And I'm like, okay, I get it.
The most surprising information to me out of that was that it was coming to the Stadia.
Yeah. I don't know who's gonna be playing Cyberpunk on Stadia, but like, can I use your internet?
It'll be Google employees.
Yeah. The CEO and his friends.
Yeah.
That's it. So yeah, Keith, do you have any questions you want to ask him about Ghostrunner?
Not really. I got to see him play it for a little bit on his server.
All right. How was it to watch? What vibes did he get off of watching him play?
Mirror's Edge vibes, and it looked a little bit frustrating to me.
Right. I always feel like that's the case whenever you're watching a game like Super Meat Boy or I'm trying to think like Celeste, where you are dying a lot. But in the moment, again, going back to the importance of that quick respawn, when you're actually in the heat of the moment and you're playing the game, as soon as you're like respawned and back at it, you immediately forget the last death and you're like, okay, just one more attempt. So yeah, I feel like those games are always more frustrating to watch than they are to play.
Yeah, there was actually one moment where one of my friends said he would have rage quit trying to do it.
Yeah.
Just because I will say for certain players it will be much harder of a game purely because it is a first-person shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are a few challenges that they have where you have to pick up a like virtual shuriken essentially, and so that's on a timer once you pick it up. But then you get unlimited throws until the timer is up. So you have to pick it up, jump to a wall to run on it. As you're jumping to this like hanging wall, you have to throw a shuriken at an electrical panel behind it, run along the wall, turn around as you're running on the wall, throw another shuriken at another electrical panel, jump from there to the next wall, which you shut off to keep you from dying, and then jump to the next wall after that, which you shut off to keep you from dying. And if you don't do it fast enough, those walls turn back on, and you die. It's frustrating, but
yeah. So that suggests to me, and this would make the Super Meat Boy comparison even more make more sense. So do levels feel like, okay, the game has a set of instructions that it wants me to follow to a T to complete the level, and I just gotta like figure out what those are by dying a lot? Or does it feel more like, okay, I know what my abilities are, there are many ways I could do this, I just need to figure out what works for me?
I would say most of it is the latter. So figuring out what works for you, especially with how to handle enemy encounters, that's pretty freeform. But once you get to puzzles, there's very much like a way that the game wants you to do it, and you do it. I would say sometimes the instructions aren't super clear, or sometimes it may just be you outthink yourself and end up being like, oh, wait, this was how I was supposed to do it. Okay, now I've got it.
Right. I don't know if you're a person who typically 100% or platinum things. Would this be, I don't know, are you playing it on PS4 or PC right now?
PC.
Okay. Do you feel like this is a game you'll try and 100%?
I'm not super big on 100%ing stuff. I might go back through it depending on how long the full playthrough takes me. Honestly, for a $30 game that I got for $24, I was expecting it to be shorter than what I've seen it is. So it may be like a one playthrough game for me, at least one like hard playthrough, and then I'll come back to it every once in a while to do a couple levels or something. But it's looking like it's gearing up to be a decently length game.
Cool. So yeah, that all sounds good from Ghostrunner. I might pick up that game. I was thinking about, I mentioned picking up for the Fantasy League. I had one more slot in there in my team that I needed to fill. But I think John got it in the end up. I can't remember. But yeah, sounds good. So yeah, now I want to talk about the Red Lantern. Just a quick note, by the time you're listening to this podcast, my review for the Red Lantern is available on the Playhouse YouTube channel and also the written version on the website, entertheplayhouse.com. So you can check that out there for my sort of concise opinions on the game as a whole. But yeah, I was able to play a lot of this game. It was one, again, that during that week of indie showcases during what would have been E3 caught my eye. The main reason for that being the main role, the protagonist being voiced by Ashley Birch, who, for those who don't know, did the voice of Aloy in Horizon Zero Dawn, or Tiny Tina in Borderlands, or she appears on Critical Role a lot. And also, formerly, I don't know how many people will get the reference to Hey Ash, What You Playing? But that was a series that she did before she got like really big. But she's always been a favourite voice of mine, so I was instantly intrigued. So the game is about, the best way I could describe it, and this was not a comparison I thought I'd make until the focus of the game sort of became clear to me, is this is FTL, but instead of a spaceship, it's a sled, and instead of your crew, it's dogs, which might appeal to a lot of people. So basically, the idea is that this character, the Musher, she's not named, but is just the protagonist that you're playing as. She wants to get away from it all. She doesn't know where she's at in life, and she wants to like find a new career and a new life. So she heard her aunt talk about dog sledding as a kid, and it sounded super great to her then. And so it's one of those things where, you know, when you're a kid, you know, we all say we're going to be an astronaut, going to be a fireman, whatever. So she decides at this point in her life where she doesn't know what she's going to do, she's going to be like, hey, whatever, I'll shoot for the stars and dream big. I'll go to Alaska, get a bunch of dogs, go sledding.
So the midlife crisis.
Right, exactly. But again, Ashley Birch's voice, she sounds like a 20-something or early 30s, but yeah. So the idea of this game is it's not actually about sled racing, which is the premise of why she's going to Alaska in the first place. It's about assembling your first team of sled dogs and getting to your new home, from where her story will play out past the game's end credits, and you could just imagine from there. But the point is, you're starting in this place where you don't know where you are. You're trying to get to your new home, and the map you have is like drawn on a menu for some diner, right? So it's terrible. It's just like cartoon drawings of trees and stuff. You don't know where you're going, but you know the general direction. So the idea of the game is, at certain intervals, you'll decide, hey, will I turn left or right? And then from there, you run into various encounters that you'll then have to make decisions, and those decisions affect whether you're able to get to your destination. So yeah, the big thing with this, I think, is it starts off very difficult, right? As is the nature of, again, anyone who's played FTL, anyone who's played a roguelike, you will not make it in your first run to the home. But it's good because death is never final, and each time you die, depending on what decisions you've made throughout your run, you'll get access to more resources or more tools that will leave you better equipped to try again. So that was super, super intriguing to me. And again, I thought it was overly brutal at the start, but as I started to get to grips with things, it became clear to me. And then in the end up, it took me 2 or 3 runs to get to the end, which in terms of time is about an hour, right? Maybe an hour and 30. And then like past that, there's not like anything else. You could just retry the game again, which was a little disappointing to me. And there's not the huge sense of satisfaction when you get to the end. There's not like a huge big cutscene going over your whole trials and tribulations. It's just like a few lines of dialogue and then credits.
Yeah, it's like, all right, you did it.
Yeah, so that was the one thing for me. I was like, all right, okay. The appeal of playing this game past that first successful run is playing encounters in different ways than you did before and finding new ones that you never found in the first place. So when I talk about encounters, again, comparing it to FTL, you would end up having to fight battles with alien spaceships, or you'd have to decide if you're going to respond to a distress call, or you need to figure out, there's a shop over here, do I go to it? It's stuff like that, but again, we're in Alaska, not space, so your encounters are going to be with the wildlife mostly. The main priority is you will need food to survive your journey, right, for both you and your dogs. There's a meter always in the top right telling you how much food you have and how much energy you have. And so, like, yeah, the main the main focus with going to in search of these animals is to hunt them and to get their meat. But beyond that, there are a lot of interactions that are just like, hey, there's a fox and he's digging under the snow to try and find his food. I'm just going to sit here and watch him, right? And so, like, have you ever seen those David Attenborough documentaries where the fox, like, jumps up in the air and then dives down and head first into the snow? And it's like, it's a cool thing to watch. And so, like, yeah, there's just one interaction where it's just like, I wonder, will I get anything? And it's just completely random. He might get it, he might not, but it's fun to watch either way. There's another where it's like, you find a baby bear all alone, and you need to decide, do I follow this baby bear to see where it goes, potentially running the risk of I'll run into mama bear and get my face clawed off. So it's things like that for the most part. There's no real... The one thing, and I didn't even think about this when I was writing the review, but Rose pointed out, she was asking if there were any alternate endings or like major story paths. For the largest part, no. Most of these interactions are just novelties and, fun things to see. And again, there's the idea that the more of these things you do, even if they don't yield food or anything, they still get tracked in your journal and still contribute to like what resources you get at the start of a run, which will make things easier. So it's always worth doing. But yeah, there were parts of me where it's like, I wish there was another human in this entire game that I could speak to and just like find out cool stories. Or there would be moments where like you wander into an abandoned cabin in search of supplies, and I would be like, why is there like not a note here or something saying like who this person was that I could, build some lore with in my head? There's just nothing like that. The only thing that is kind of like that is with the dogs themselves. And this is where I think the strength of the game really is. So with the dogs, at the start of the game, you will have to choose your party. You start off with one dog that you always get called Chomper, who's like your pet dog that you've had since you were a kid. And he's going to be the leader of the pack. And then you need to choose 4 more dogs from a party of 8. From a possible 8, and you go to each dog individually and you like get a feel for their personality, and if they'll fit into the team. Those are all super cute little interactions and are really good at design-wise and animation-wise. They're very good at making each dog feel unique and creating an attachment with them. So, for example, there's like one of the first dogs I recruited is a veteran. He's an older dog, and he is very territorial about his food. So one of the ways that affected my runs is that I veered off course and I found a weasel. And I was like, okay, I'm going to follow that weasel. It was a pair of weasels, and I was following the pair. And then once I got to the forest, there was only one of the weasels. And I was like, where's your friend gone? Huh, weird. I went back to my sled, and it was a diversion, right? So one of the weasels was distracting me. The other weasel was going back to my sled to get the food. But because I chose the dog that really loves food, he killed the weasel and protected my food. Or there's another example where there's this one dog who like doesn't bark, but he's like always watching, and he's got these cold blue eyes, and he will find animals or cool resources that other dogs aren't able to see. So that always helped me find resources easily in my run. And then beyond that, each dog has their own like narrative that you can play out if you make the right decisions. There was another dog on my party who was in a few scraps when he was a puppy and has been trying to like prove himself ever since. So there was one interaction where you get attacked by a wolf, and he immediately jumps in and tries to fight the wolf, and he gets injured as a result. So you try to like convey to this dog, don't just like rush in and bite him. Try to scare him off. Like, you've got a bark, you can use that. You've got a good voice. And there's like, it's weird. There's like a little telltale thing where it's like, Barkley will remember that. And it's like, okay, I guess I was able to communicate with this dog through English. Weird. But later on down the line, that dog will be face to face with a bear, and he will listen to what you said before, and it'll just like bark it away, and his bark will be louder than all the other dogs in your party, and the bear will just like run off because he's scared. And you're like, yes, Barkley, you found your voice, and that completes like a log in your journal. Oh. And so watching those play out was super, super interesting to me, and it does make me want to go back and play through the game again with a completely different composition of dogs. There were a few dogs that when you're recruiting your party that you're able to see, and you're just like, I don't know about you might cause a ruckus. And you have to say like, no, you didn't make the cut. So yeah, I'll be interested to go back and try them dogs, because there's like so many that I just didn't get to or even see at all. But yeah, I think that the combination of the dog's personality and the personality of the performances by Ashley Birch during this whole run is the main strength of this game, and it's worth like replaying over and over again to try and find new ways of that. As a game, in terms of just gameplay, I don't think it's able to do the same things and like grab you the way that FTL does. It's sort of like a diet version of FTL in terms of its gameplay, where there's just like not a whole lot of tough decisions you have to make in that same way. And that is partly why it's so easy to just like complete the game very quickly. But I think the things that this game does do well is character and vibes with the dogs. So that was one thing. Again, can you pet the dog is a big thing at the minute it has been for like the past 2 years or so on Twitter, and like games adding dogs and pets that you can like interact with has been a more and more important thing seemingly. But I don't think I've had as many meaningful interactions with animal companions in games as I had in this one game. So yeah, that was super, super interesting to me, and something that I think will stick with me as I interact with other dogs and other creatures, Pokemon, whatever, in other games.
And that's interesting that you say that, because I do know that Pokemon has definitely been pushing more things like the camping in Sword and Shield, where it's like a chance to sit down and interact and play with Pokemon and whatnot.
Yeah. And that's the big thing is you have a camp in this game, and it just that's the opportunity you have to pet the dogs. You can pet each dog. You get an achievement for petting all 4 dogs, and yeah, it's just like nice, chill vibes. Again, I like the graphic wise, it's not great. It's very bare bones, very polygonal. But again, the designs of the dogs are so colorful and varied, and really, as soon as you see them, like you might not even know their personality and what makes them tick, but you get a sense of them. And it's just really good because, like, I feel like this game could have just been easily like 4 similar looking Siberian Huskies, and it luckily wasn't, and they did aim a bit higher than that in that regard. So yeah, it was very nice feeling a bond with my party and seeing their stories play out as mine also played out.
I had to look this up to double check for myself. If I'm correct, just like based on number of combinations, I think there's like 70 total combinations you could have there if you're picking from 8 for a team of 4.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I suppose.
Do you think you'll go through all 70 potential playthroughs?
No, because the dogs don't interact with each other as much as they do with the protagonist directly. So yeah, and the environment, yeah. So you could probably see everything just by like doing one run with the first 4 dogs and then doing another run with the other 4. Yeah, I think I'll probably do 1 or 2 more runs with the 4 that I didn't choose initially, and then that'll probably be it for me. I've probably seen a lot. Again, there's a journal that like lets you keep track of what you have seen, so you can like get a sense of how many more times you need to replay it. And I've done about 5 or 6 runs. I think most like 4 of them are successful. And I think I've seen like 70% of the things that there are to see. And that's the thing as well, like you can't, if I just wanted to like say there's one specific thing that I see in my journal that I haven't done and I want to go seek that out, there's no way to really do that. It's purely random. So you might just get stuck with the same events occurring over and over again. It's just like, I just want this one thing. So I don't know how quickly I'm going to get bored with that. We'll see. Yeah, I'll probably do 1 or 2 more runs just to see what the other dogs are like, and then that'll probably be it for me.
So that leads me to what I think is probably the next question that most listeners would be wondering, which is, would you say it's worth the $25 price tag?
If again, I wouldn't go into it if you heard me compare it to FTL and think, hey, it's another game like that I can play. I wouldn't go on that assumption. If you were looking to kill time, I guess, and if you really like dogs, this is the game for you. But again, I think there are other games that do this type of storytelling better, right? Especially with the protagonist, say. I feel like Madeline from Celeste is a good comparison to make in terms of her story and what she's trying to set out at the beginning. So I think if you're looking for that story, Celeste does that way better. If you're looking for this game where you're trying to get from A to B and it's a roguelite and you're making decisions, FTL is way better. And those are both also way cheaper. So I think, no, I wouldn't recommend it unless it was on sale first. I think the big takeaway for me is how this game does certain things really, really good that I think other games could learn from and that I'll be looking out for as I play other games. So yeah, again, if you want a little bit more on that, you can watch our review on the Playhouse YouTube channel, or you can reach out to me directly on Twitter if there are any questions that you didn't hear me answer here. So with that being said, I want to talk about another game, and I just want to give this a brief mention because this game has been out for a long time. I'm just now getting around to it, and that is Valkyria Chronicles 4. I loved Valkyria Chronicles 1. It was actually the first game I ever live streamed.
Remember that?
No, sorry. Actually, the first game I ever live streamed was Shovel Knight, but that was just the one stream. This is the first one I played beginning to end on stream. And I really loved that. I loved, again, going back to comparing it to what I liked about the Red Lantern, I loved that you got to pick your squad mates and they each felt unique and they each had their own stories that would play out in front of you, and you felt an attachment to them and you didn't want them to die. So like, again, going back real quick to like what you were saying, or like other games that does those things better, I think Valkyria Chronicles is a game where it does like squad mates that you care about better. So yeah, you can look up that if you're interested in that aspect of it. But yeah, it's really, really good, and I was nervous going into 4 because of the fond memories I had of 1, and 2 and 3 being PSVD games that I never really touched. I think 3 wasn't even released in the West. I don't know if that's been released afterwards, but I don't think I ever got around here. But yeah, luckily Valkyria Chronicles 4 nails what the first one did right and just expands upon those ideas in ways that are really intriguing to me. If you've never played 1, I would recommend actually that you just jump straight into 4. And it's because they both focus on one war that's happening, and they both share the same space and time, but largely they're completely separate and don't interact with each other in any way. So this is like a completely different country you're fighting as, completely different squad, cast of characters. So you could jump in and get the Valkyria Chronicles experience, I think, without having to go back to 1, and you get some additional things that they iterated on since 1 that I think are really important. Again, I won't go over. It's a long ass game, and I'm just about finished with it. I'm on the final mission, but there are so many things I could say. I just want to be brief about the things that this does better than 1. Most of which I think the new class that they added, the Grenadier, is very, very fun. The interactions between the main cast. And when I say that, the main cast, you play as this huge squad of, say, 20 people, I think it is. And then there are more reserves that you can switch in and out at any given time. But there are always, in Valkyria Chronicles, 5 or 6 characters who you have that cannot die and are critical to the story, and how most of the story plays out through cutscenes and stuff. I feel like those characters were a lot more fleshed out in 4 than the characters in 1 were. And don't get me wrong, I love those guys, but a lot of, like, Welkin, who's the main person from the first game, is a bit anime protagonist in a bad way, where he's like, I just want to fight for good, and I've got no real character flaws, and, you know, I'm just like all about teamwork and friendship. Yeah. to an extent, Claude, who is the Welkin equivalent from 4, is similar in a lot of ways, but he recognizes that those parts of him are his character flaws. So he's like, he was scared of confrontation and combat for a long time, and without going into too many things, that led to some trauma in his life that he feels blame for, and he was able to, like, he still has that trauma, but he's able to, like, work past it and move past it, but that still affects him, which I think is really important, especially in a game about war. And yeah, Other characters have, I won't go through each one, but each of them has their own problems with themselves. And that's not important just because of story. Valkyria Chronicles is very good at having those traits play out in gameplay. And what I mean by that is every character, even more than the main cast, your whole squad has a list of traits that are tied to their personality that affect them on the battlefield, right? So there could be one that says, like, he's a womanizer. So if he's placed in the battlefield next to a bunch of female soldiers, he'll get a buff. There's other people who's like, there's a girl who is like a city girl and doesn't like the wilderness. So if you put her in grass or in dirt, she'll like get a debuff and she'll be like miss her shots more and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of that. That was cool in the first game. What I think this game does really well is driving home that you are not the bad parts of yourself and the ability for change. And so that comes into the big addition, I think, from 4, which is squad stories, where it fleshes out the stories of the other squad mates that aren't part of the main cast, and really lets them let their personality shine through and gives them a little bit of screen time away from all the main campaign stuff. And by the end of each squad story, normally it's 3 members of your squad all interacting with each other and playing out a little mini story. And by the end of it, they normally learn new things about themselves and others, which allows them to change. And that affects both them as a character in terms of the story and also changes their traits that play out in the battlefield. So, like, you can have one character that is a racist, right? They're racist characters in this game and in this world who won't do well when you place them next to members of the race that they're hateful towards. And the mini story plays out. I don't want to make it sound like, hey, this guy was a racist and then he learned that he wasn't, right? It's much more nuanced than I'm describing here, and Valkyria Chronicles are very good at highlighting the darker aspects of war, right? Which is, you might not expect being like the anime art style and some of the more goofier moments in the game, but it does do that really well, and that goes all the way back to 1. But it's really fascinating to me how this game really hammers the capacity for change in people and encourages you to play out these stories to get better traits for your squad, and how it also, like, how each of these stories feels meaningful and real and how the characters play out. Again, Valkyria Chronicles are great at highlighting the dark aspects of war, as I mentioned. In the first game, there is an allegory to the Holocaust, right, where there is a race that is sort of persecuted, and there is work camps and mass extinctions, and it's really horrible, and it doesn't gloss over that in a way where it could have just not touched that subject material. God knows that no game wants to have a Holocaust as part of the storyline, but I think it was really ambitious for them to do that, and how well they did it was really inspiring to me. And then those themes continue in 4 in other ways, but again, similar dark vibes, right? But again, just to drive it home, I think 4 is really good at highlighting that in those dark times, humanity can come together as a unit and change and become better, which is super timely for the times we're in. And like, it makes me glad almost that I waited this long to play it, because it is a game that's sort of given me hope in the time that we're in. And yeah, just really wanted to give that game a shout out. Super, super good. I can't wait to finish it. Again, that last mission is a doozy, and I've tried like 2 or 3 times and I haven't beat it. But yeah, super, super fun stuff.
What that tells me is like, so I don't have 4 yet, but I do have, I think it's the HD version of 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have that on Steam, so it tells me I should definitely start looking into playing the series in general, whether it's the first or the fourth.
Yeah. And again, I would say, obviously, you could skip 2 and 3 just because either they're hard to get, but like, yeah, 1 and 4 are completely separate stories and they don't play off each other and they don't play off 2 and 3 as far as I'm aware. There is the nice aspect if you get the complete edition of 4 where your squad does run into the squad from the first game, and that is very jolly, and that was like I was grinning ear to ear when that happened. But other than that, like you could start with either if you're planning to play both, I'd say definitely start with 1 and then 4 just to appreciate the differences and the advancements between the two. But if you're just looking, like, it is a long game. I think I'm almost 100 hours in, almost about to complete it. But yeah, definitely you could just, if you're, again, time investment is a big thing with games these days, maybe even more so than money. But yeah, if you're looking to just like get a 60-hour hit, you could just like blaze through the campaign of Valkyria Chronicles 4 and not do the extra stuff that I did.
So a quick other question, because I'm sure it has been for other people. It's always been a problem for me with JRPGs, especially, and more so for older ones. They've gotten better about it over time. How are they in terms of keeping track of where you are in the story?
This is basically
you can jump in case because you played this game as well, right?
No, yeah, I've beaten both of them.
Yeah, nice.
It's chapter based, so basically you have a big open storybook, and you can flip through chapters in order to keep track of where you are.
Okay. Because yeah, like I remember for the years that I hadn't completed Final Fantasy VII, that was a big part of it for me. It was like I would play it, put it down, come back to it and be like, well, I don't know where I was, time to restart. And then I'd put it down again, and then I'd have to restart again. Just because I always wanted to keep track of the story. And that's why I like Persona 5 so much, was because Persona 5 had like the journal system and all of that, and always kept a marker at the top of your screen telling you what your next objective was.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely easy in that regard because it's linear. It's not like you're not running around an open world or anything, so it's like super easy in that regard. And again, it's funny that you mentioned it because I wasn't thinking about it, but there are certain moments in dialogue where characters do seem to bring up like things that seem obvious, which is a little weird when you're just playing through it, like blazing through it like I was. But I think it's for those instances where you've played 3 chapters and then you left it for a while to play another game and then you've come back. So I think it is really good at like keeping you in the loop. And again, you can always go back and replay specific cutscenes very easily to try and like get the gist of like, okay, these are the major story moments that I need to focus on. Keith, what was your I never really talked with you about it, like and again we'll try and keep spoilers light, but I'm almost finished it and you have finished it. What was your general impressions of 4 compared to 1?
Oh, I felt it was more the same but with improvements, but I already liked Valkyria Chronicles 1 quite a bit. And so more of that with improvements and a different the stories kind of run parallel to each other at 1 and 4, and I like seeing what was going on the other side of the war.
Right. Yeah, definitely the formula, like if you, again, you can go back and play 1 very easily a day. It holds up. The formula is rock solid. I think anyone who as well has played Fire Emblem will get a kick out of this game as well, as they have similarities in terms of, you know, your squad mates that you interact with, and you're playing in the battlefield and there's permadeath. There is similarities there. So yeah, I've got a friend who's playing through a bunch of Fire Emblem games at the minute, and he keeps like talking about cool aspects of the game, and I was like, oh yeah, that's in Valkyria Chronicles.
I was actually going to say you might want to try a Fire Emblem game. I've enjoyed what I've played of Three Houses, though I haven't played too much of it.
Yeah. And again, Three Houses is what got my friend into it, and I was surprised as well because he hates anime and the art style. He just hates it. And so one day he texted me, it's like, man, I've not got any Switch games to play. Like, could you suggest me one? Fire Emblem Three Houses came into my head despite me not playing it, but I was like, I'll just not throw that one at him. And so I suggested, like, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, or have you finished Breath of the Wild, and all these other things. And I kept throwing them at him. And he's like, nah. Hey, what do you think about this Fire Emblem Three Houses thing? And I'm like, what do you think about Fire Emblem Three Houses? It's like, I think I'm going to play it. I'm like, I think you should. And he has been hooked on the series, like, completely to my shock. But yeah, I'm definitely, if he's into it, then I'm definitely going to be into it. Sure.
I lament your friend's situation, though, because
being out of games to play.
Well, not even that. Just the fact that he's never going to get to legally play Path of Radiance, probably. Unless he wants to pay $300 for it. That's so you're familiar with the Smash roster, right?
Yes.
So that's the one that Ike is from on the GameCube.
Okay. I was about to say because they just announced that they're bringing the first Fire Emblem game to the Switch.
That's cool.
Yeah. The NES one, and that's the one that like Marth comes from, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said it to my friend, and he's like, I don't know if I'm going to go back that far, but cool to see. It's funny that you bring up expensive games, Tim, because this feels like a perfect time for me to introduce a new segment that I've been planning for a while. And I'm tentatively calling this Finn's Bargain Bin. So the idea behind it is I love just like browsing the nooks and crannies of the eShop and the PlayStation Store and just finding like little nuggets of weirdness that are like $1.50, $2 and that like strike me. I don't know why, but when you're going through like lists of hundreds of things of cover art, there are some games that just like jump out at you and you're like, all right, I'll lay down to $2 for this. What's this all about? So that's what Finn's Bargain Bin is all about. I want to talk about games today. I just need to get something up real quick. Here we go. So yeah, this is about like cool games you could get for really cheap that I want to recommend. And I do all the work searching through the depths of these online digital stores, so you don't have to. So yeah, in the spirit of this new segment, we have not shelled out the money for a theme song, so I'm just going to have to make it up here in the spot. So, when the games you own all suck, but you've only got $3, well, strap in, cause you're in luck, cause it's time for Finn's Bargain Bin. Yeah.
So what have you got on the table for us?
Oh god, it's playing again. Music, stop. Okay. So the game I bring to you today, gentlemen, is a game called MacBat 64. So this is a game where it's made by a small team, and it's a racing game, but it's designed to look like an N64 platformer, right? So what you're thinking, Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie games, stuff like that, right? Yeah. In your head, what you're thinking of, that's what you're getting. Super short game, I will stress from the start. The main campaign is about an hour long, and then there's like some bonus stages, which I'll get to in a bit, but very, very quick if you just want like a hit of some nostalgia. So yeah, this game is you're playing as this little bat character, and it's a platformer. So the mechanics of this bat is that you have like if you picture how Kirby and King Dedede and all jump in Smash Bros, where they have like 10 jumps and then they're out. That's sort of how this little bat jumps. He flaps his wings 10 times and then he can jump no more. But you can get some good verticality in there. So basically, you're just going through level to level, just like completing these like little quests from these NPCs and using platforming to achieve it, right? Super basic in that regard. What I think is notable about this game is how many things you like, just little small things where it's like something the character says or something the game does really well, and you just smile, right? And I was smiling the whole time throughout this game. It was just a hit of joy. The opening cutscene is just like super to the point. It's like, once there was a Kiwi. The Kiwis lived on an island, then some evil melon king came, and then he got defeated, and now the world is at peace. And that's like the opening cutscene, almost verbatim. So you start this game as this little bat, and you walk into this tavern, and they're just like immediately cool things where you walk up to a character, and he's like, one of these days I really hope to help you out in your adventure without repeating myself. And then you walk away and you walk back up to him. It's like, one of these days I really hope to help you on your adventure without repeating myself. And that's all he says. And it's like, that's immediately cute. That reminds me of N64. And they're just like little cute moments like that reference other games, or it's like you're a character that got pulled out of some other game. There's like a weird moment as well where it's like there's one character in the whole game that has voice acting and none of the other characters are voiced. And so when you hear this guy talk, it's like, whoa, where did that come from? Why did they only voice him? And they're just like things that does really well. It's like each level is really, really easy to complete and only takes about 5 minutes each. But they're all very unique and remind you of like other N64 games that have done this, but like with a little bit of modern advancement. So like there's a level that's just like, again, reminds me of Super Meat Boy, right? There's razor blades everywhere and you're just trying to thread the needle through. There's like an underwater level where you have to like avoid sharks and stuff. But there are so many little moments where it's just like, they didn't have to go that hard, but they did. When you complete the game, there's a bonus level or a set of bonus levels where it is like they basically tell you in the end credits, it's like, here are these bonus levels. They're ideas that I couldn't implement properly in the main game, but like have at them. And those bonus levels are all as good as the main set of levels. I don't know why they weren't in the original game, but there's just some like very cute things in there. There's like just a level where you go to the moon, say, and it's awesome, right?
Is there a duck
like,
there?
They're very good. There's not a duck there. You're going through this giant hallway, and like you're getting further and further into the cavern, and it's just like you walk into this room, and suddenly like there's a bomb being detonated, and there's a timer, and you feel awesome trying to escape this dungeon. I'm trying to do this game justice. It's very hard when all of the ideas are very basic. And again, the challenges that it provides are not complex in any way. Like, your kid could do this. It's not hard. And normally challenge is something that goes hand in hand in a good platforming game. I don't think this is that. I think this is just like
the joyride.
Giving you... Yeah, I think it's just giving you a few good game design ideas that will make you smile, and also just like giving you a quick hit of nostalgia. Like, people often say, oh man, I really long for the days of Mario 64. I'll go back and play it. And then they realize how long Mario 64 is and how long it takes to 100% complete it, and they're like, they stop halfway through. But like, this is great if you're feeling that way, and it's just like, I just want an afternoon where I just get that hit. You know, it's like an injection of N64, and you're just like, okay, and I'm done. I enjoyed that experience. I can move on. And so this game is $2 on the eShop. Yep. If you're nostalgic for that era of games and just want an hour of like fun from that, buy this, because it's just like, you get in, you enjoy yourself, you get out. And like, that's the best experience I can hope from a game that I'll present to Finn's bargain bin. Is that like, it's not a huge time investment. It has some interesting ideas, and I enjoy it, and then I get out. So yeah, just really want to shine some love on that games. There are other games that I played in hopes of bringing it to Finn's Bargain Bin, but they're not even worth discussing because they're broken and bad. And that is the gamble of this segment, right? I'm going to play a lot of just broken ass games that aren't good, and the cover art lied to me.
You know how you get that like to the most extreme?
Mhm.
You go to G2A, which I know we don't really trust G2A anymore, but you go to
I will
G2A
never go to GTA.
and you buy their random pack. Like they sell a cheap pack of just random games.
Yeah,
And
that could definitely be a way I go about it if I wasn't just like so down on GTA,
yeah.
as I should be. But yeah, that's the idea, right? I'm just basically going for a lucky dip and seeing what I get. But no, like Tim, I think this would be interesting for you as well, purely in the sense that like I play these games and like every time there's a cool game design thing that I don't see in other games, I'm like, yes, very good. And this MacBat 64 is filled with just like cool little things like that. And I feel like you could like, this is a game where you could like, if you're stuck for ideas in game design, if you were developing a game, say, a platformer specifically, you would need to be developing a platformer, and you were like looking for some inspiration and some cool little fun things, you'd be just like, hey, load up MacBat 64 and like, hey, I'm inspired now. I got some like 40 cool new ideas for my platforming game, my Banjo-Kazooie sequel. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and then also the aspect of if it was a bad game, boy, I'd just have a time tearing it apart.
That's half the fun as well, right? I think there are very few times that we as humans allow ourselves to be angry. Anger is sort of looked down, or not looked down upon,
Right.
but like sort of, yeah, it's sort of like if you're angry in a public setting, people are going to look at you weird, and you're going to be socially cast out a little bit. So there are very few times where we as humans embrace anger. And part of the fun of me just like going through these dumb eShop games is like, I can get angry at this. Like, I'm not hurting anyone by like yelling at the screen right now and being angry at this dumb game that doesn't work. You asked me to save the princess. I can't find the damn princess. You haven't given me a map. I can be angry at you. I'm entitled to be angry at you. I paid my money. Give me the princess. And so I think that's part of the joy, right? So I think some weeks you're going to see me on here and I'm just going to rant about some dumb game that doesn't matter. But other games might just be like a little bit of MacBat 64. There may be times where I find a thing and it's like, guys, this is my game of the year. And no one cares because no one's heard of it. And I'm just going to be screaming from the rooftops like, no,
It's only $2.
keyboard simulator is like really good and has some really interesting systems. And you're like, nah, I'm just going to
Come
play
on, guys.
more Skyrim.
You've got to play Typing of the Dead.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see where the segment goes. Again, I like doing this anyway. So hopefully I come with some more interesting nuggets to share with y'all. But again, MacBat 64, $2, high recommendation from me. That's a winner. So yeah, moving on to actual real video games. Tim, tell me about Guilty Gear.
So, I also have to say this might be applicable to the bargain bin, at least for a period. In fact, that period might be over by the time this podcast is released. Either that or there will be 1 day left. This sale's going on until the 2nd.
Do you have your own theme song? I think not.
So, Guilty Gear Xrd is the most recent release, specifically the Rev 2 version. That game is an amazing fighting game, probably my favorite fighting game at the moment. But it has been plagued since its release, and Dragon Ball FighterZ, also developed by Arc System Works, has been plagued by it. Tons of fighting games are plagued by the issue of bad netcode. There is I call it new, but it's not new. It's been in Street Fighter V, it's been in Killer Instinct, it's been in Skullgirls at this point. Tons of games have now added it in. Some companies like SNK have gone back and retroactively added it back in.
Just to sorry to interrupt, just to briefly explain, because you have touched on this idea a little bit in sort of other podcasts we've done and some reaction streams and stuff. Could you like go into a little bit about how important netcode is to a fighting game and like ways current games do it that are good or bad, just to like for the layman?
Yeah. So I'll go to a game like Marvel vs. Capcom is probably a really good example. More people probably know Street Fighter, but Street Fighter doesn't operate on like super long combos. Though I guess I could come up with an example for Street Fighter too. So like Street Fighter, it would be, the difference between, so like the game plan for Ryu is you shoot fireballs at your opponent until they start jumping into you. And then once they jump in, you do a Shoryuken to uppercut them as they jump in. Netcode could very easily be like the difference between you landing that Shoryuken and hitting them out of the air and getting stuffed by their foot hitting your face. And so that's where you come into these two different kinds of netcode. There is what most of the industry has been using, which is delay-based, which is basically a packet gets lost, there's an interruption in the connection, and it physically delays the game until it reconnects. So you cannot put in an input, you can't do any of that stuff. And so you're sitting there and you have to do your input for the Shoryuken, which is like forward, then down back, then down forward, plus punch. Well, you try to do that, and it delays in the middle of you trying to do that, so it drops all of your inputs and you don't get your combo. With rollback, it essentially lets the game keep playing and keeps a buffer around what has happened as far as input goes, so it keeps a couple frames back and a couple frames forward and does a best estimation of what should happen and then corrects once the connection goes back in place. So it allows you to keep controlling the game and do your Shoryuken input. And so when the game corrects, if the person came in and you did your Shoryuken, you should be hitting them out of the air when the game corrects, or they should be landing from getting hit by it.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
And so Guilty Gear just added this to one of their older games from the PS2 generation, so it's a mouthful. Guilty Gear Double X or XX, so Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus R. It was like the later versions of the game, because it was initially just Guilty Gear X2. So this version has just been given, as of yesterday, literally, a beta for rollback netcode. SNK added it to their game, Garo Mark of the Wolves, which is a super old fighting game. They just added it to, I think, the 2000 Ultimate Match or whatever version of King of Fighters. So right now, though, if you want to see like what the deal is with rollback and like kind of get some experience, though you'll be playing against veterans who have been playing this game in tournaments for, I think, close to 10 years at this point. Don't let that intimidate you, though, because there's now a much wider base of players playing this game. It's $3 right now until the 2nd.
Yeah. So, me and John have been talking a lot about on Playhouse Live, which you can catch on twitch.tv/Playhouse Live every Saturday. We've been talking about the growing phenomenon in devs recently to go back and retroactively decrease the file size of their games, right?
Yeah.
And how that's a really a good thing for consumers, but does take a lot of resources, right? And it's there's different incentives to why companies would want to do that. Adding this netcode to a 10-year-old game, what is the incentive for that? Is it, just like pride in your work? Is it there's a big community still like dying for this, or like what's the deal? Why fix this game's netcode and not just like make a new one?
They are making a new one, Guilty Gear Strive, which was going to have delay-based netcode. I played in the not the first beta, but I played in an earlier beta for the game when it still had delay-based netcode. And then after that beta, because people have been freaking out in the fighting game community for the past year plus at this point about just like, please put rollback into your games. And it really came to a head with that beta. And so pretty soon after that, at the next event, Arc System Works announced that they would be implementing rollback into Strive. And I think part of the reason they added it to Accent Core is because they wanted... I think they're using it as a test bed as well. And as terrible as this might sound, because I don't think you should discount how beloved a game is, I think there's a couple reasons they did it to Accent Core and not something like Xrd, which is a more recent and, in my opinion, more populated game. And the reason for that is, one, it's not as big a deal if they screw it up, though I don't think that should be how they look at it, because it's a big deal to the people that still play that game. Right. But two, it might be that they had better programming practices back then. Either that or they more recently updated the game and know their way around its files better. Because doing rollback, like I said, requires that system of having a buffer around the input, which means you have to have programmed that into the base of the game in order to keep that information there. So like if you have a replay system that keeps track of inputs and whatnot, you're much more easily able to implement it. But NetherRealm had delay-based netcode in Mortal Kombat X, and they spent months like tearing the game down and rebuilding it with rollback netcode in mind to release a rollback patch for it later. So it is a massive undertaking to go back and update more modern games, I would say, as compared to an older game that they may have either just added the netcode into, or it might just have a smaller code base for them to work with.
Yeah.
So I think it's an experiment and a beta test and kind of a test bed for future games. And I only think they haven't done it for more recent games just because there is a lot more to sift through with the more recent releases.
Got it. Yeah, that makes total sense. And so now that you've got a little bit of hands-on time with this, what are your initial feelings on it?
It is just a significant improvement. Like, I miss some of the quality of life changes that more modern games have, but as far as an actual playing against an opponent experience, I would say, on the whole, it has been a massive net improvement, because I could play Guilty Gear Xrd against people that literally live within 20 minutes from me, and I would like drop combos all over the place. I would not be able to play certain characters properly, and now I can play with other friends who are in different states, and it's almost like playing in the same room.
Really, really, yeah. The playing in the same room thing is super optimistic to hear. I know you're very passionate about fighting games, and playing them online is very important, especially nowadays. And yeah, just the fact that they're able to go back and retroactively like breathe new life into this game. And you think there's like an uptick in the amount of people going back and playing this?
Oh, 100%. I was literally just scrolling through Twitter earlier, and I saw, I kept it open to this page. There's a group that's already holding rollback netcode tournament for North America on Sunday.
Very cool. And so do you think this is going to be a thing where they, you talked about it a little bit, but do you think this is a thing where they take the success of this and say, hey, maybe we should go back to some of our more recent, more beefy code games and, you know, try and add this as well to try and like really appeal to those communities? Or do you think this is just going to be a thing where it's like, okay, that worked, now let's add that to the next game and every game henceforth?
So I think for sure it'll be used iteratively. I am not 100% sure that it'll be used retroactively for more modern games.
Right.
However, there was a relatively big incident that just happened with Dragon Ball FighterZ that might lead to some change on that front. There's a player, Chris G, who doesn't have the best reputation, so it didn't entirely surprise people, but Dragon Ball FighterZ has just recently had a like world tournament, basically. And like I've discussed, the netcode for that game is not great. So they had to lock the tournament to different regions. So you only played against people from your country, basically. And I'm sure on the US they had to do West Coast and East Coast because you can't play Coast to Coast.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, it was an invitation-only tournament. And when you got invited, you accepted, you know, okay, I know who my opponents are going to be. I know the internet conditions I'm playing under. Like, you accept all of that burden before you even officially enter the tournament. So Chris G enters the tournament, plays one match, and just has a terrible experience with the netcode. And I'm not going to say whether or not he was playing at his best or not at his best, because I can't really say that. Sometimes it really is the netcode that causes the issue. And the commentators were commenting on it and all of that stuff. And Chris G immediately dropped out of the tournament after. He just said, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to play in this. And that's not great on his part professionally, but it also speaks to how much of a problem it is.
Yeah, and I think for fighting games, especially where community and tournaments and esports are so vital for the lifespan of the game, I think that if you let a problem like that become too much of an issue, that becomes the story where, like you say, I'm sure in that specific tournament, netcode was talked about again and again and again afterwards. Like, even if it wasn't a problem in specific matches, that was definitely like a worry in people's minds. Which is not what you want if you're the developer or publisher of this game, to that be the thing that gets talked about. Do you think this is a thing where others might look to what has been done with Guilty Gear here and add it to their games as sort of like a, if it's easy and it's doable, we can breathe some new life into this? Or do you think that's unlikely?
I would say we'll see it for games probably from the PS2 generation or earlier. And honestly, like, Guilty Gear's late to the pack on this. Like, Street Fighter's already done it for so Capcom's already done it for Street Fighter V, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, the online edition of Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. SNK's done it for King of Fighters games, Garo Mark the Wolves. Like I said, Skullgirls added it. Like, there are definitely companies that are jumping on board with it, and Arc System Works has been one of the later parties, but I think it's becoming a widespread, maybe not necessarily that they're thinking of adding it in, but there's definitely like a consciousness arising within the fighting game development community of, we're going to get torn to shreds if we don't try to adopt this.
Yeah. And so that I assume that spells good things for the future.
Yeah.
Great. So yeah, that's good to hear. So now, you've had some issues with it, but Keith, talk to me a little bit about what you have played of Watch Dogs Legion.
So I want to preface that I am still working on playing this game. I'm not going to drop it just because I'm having a few issues.
Mm-hmm.
But I've gotten past the first maybe 5 or so missions of Watch Dogs Legion.
Mm-hmm.
It's been great so far. I still don't get some of the humor because I'm not British enough for that, and I don't get a lot of the slang that's going on. But they mostly try to keep it simple to American audiences. But there's a lot of regional slang and stuff that goes on. But I'm enjoying the game so far, and if it weren't for the crashes, I'd probably be further along.
Right. How do the crashes manifest themselves? Or are they just like, how frequent are they, and how like annoying is it to try and like boot up this game again?
So they seem to happen like every hour to 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just get a crash, and the suggestion action is to update the game or update my PS4. And it's like, I can't update the game or my PS4 because they're already updated. What do you want from me? And it's a rather long boot up process because this is still PS4, not PS5.
Right.
So it takes a good like 3-4 minutes to get back into game.
Yeah. I remember reading a headline recently where apparently, and I don't know if they fixed this at the time of this podcast coming out, but there was a game-breaking bug on the Xbox Series X for Watch Dogs Legion where it would cause it to overheat and just make everything unplayable. And like, yeah, issues like that and issues like this, especially when, again, this game was supposed to come out in February, and we're now here and it's only coming out and it's still having issues. I wonder if it's down to, and I want to know your thoughts on this, Keith. Do you think, and again, it's pure speculation, do you think it might be down to the ambition of the game and what it's trying to do with these like loads of playable characters and no main story and having to account for all these different variables and things that are happening? Do you think it was just too much for this development team to try and cobble together?
The thing I don't think it's the random characters, because I believe from what someone else says, like at the start of the game, all your people are already randomized. They're not randomized as you meet them. They're randomized at game startup. So I personally believe it is they tried to develop it for next gen and focus more on next gen, and that PS4 and Xbox were an afterthought.
Right.
Because it seems to be happening because we don't have PS5s yet, but PC's having some issues as well that they recently fixed with another hot fix.
Yeah. That it's not a new story for Ubisoft. That thing that you bring up is interesting in terms of primarily focusing on next gen. I wonder how many people are doing that, and I wonder what the strategy was, both in terms of initially trying to release this game back in February, and then also when you have already delayed it to this point, not just waiting for the next gen consoles to come out, if that was the case. Because you'd imagine that most reviewers will be playing on the next gen systems, like the either PC or PS5 or Xbox Series X. So maybe that would be more favorable for reviews. In terms of reviews, it's sort of been both ways, where some people are giving it 9s, others are giving it 5 out of 10s. And it just seems like there's a confrontation where people love the ideas that the game presents, but are a little bit hesitant on the execution. Of what you have played, like Keith, what has the game sort of introduced to you at this point about how this world and this gameplay sort of operates, and how are you feeling about it so far?
So So far, I've played through a few missions. The starting mission sees you playing as a single character, and that character dies. That was the last of the people. Everybody gets wiped out, and it's like, okay, we're trying to reboot DedSec, as it were. So you select from a roster of like 30 people at the start, then choose your person. Their stats, I don't know if their stats are randomized at the beginning or not. But you choose from a list from a different people and you play as that person for the first couple missions. And it starts opening up to saying, hey, well, you liberated this area. Now you can start recruiting people in this area to become part of DedSec. And each recruit has a special mission you have to do in order to recruit them.
And so the characters that you've come into contact with, and you know how they play off each other, and how do they play differently in terms of like mission to mission, and I'm just wondering, like, in terms of story or in terms of character rather, are they like varied, or is it very clearly like a cut and paste job with a few different paint jobs here and there?
So what I can see is that every person, there's a few people who have the same stats. There's always going to be. They made a limited number of class archetypes like spy and construction worker and stuff like that, and just gave them randomized stats. So there's going to be a lot of crossover at that point. Everybody plays somewhat the same because it wouldn't be fair to lock you out of certain abilities, but their random abilities and their special abilities are what make them unique. Like, I got a special hacker that once she hacks something, it propagates to other areas and starts hacking those as well. I got a construction worker. He can summon a heavy construction unit, which was required for a mission. And you can ride that heavy construction unit and lift up objects and move them to another location.
Yeah. So yeah, again, the concept of this game intrigues me, and it has since that first trailer we were shown back at E3 2019. My favorite Assassin's Creed game ever is Brotherhood, and it was interesting to me when you were talking about the idea of being in this hostile environment and liberating sections of the map and then being able to recruit from there and get your squad from there, which sounds on the most basic level sounds like what Brotherhood was doing almost to a T. And that's what I really loved about that game. And what grabbed me from the Watch Dogs Legion trailer is it just seems like that idea, but turned up to 11. In terms of where your head's at with the possibilities of this game, do you think, are you optimistic? Or, you know, do you think it's going to follow like a basic Watch Dogs pattern that like the resistance is happening and then you gotta get into this one evil layer and take down this one bad guy and it's all going to be fine? How optimistic are you about like where this game could go in terms of how open it is?
I'm keeping my expectations tempered a little bit because I'm finding myself, they had introduced something called a spider drone, and I've been just infiltrating the areas with the spider drone
Dude,
and hacking everything.
Tell me about the spider drone. So, I have a very specific reason why I love this thing, but tell me about the spider drone.
So the spider drone, you can either have your own custom one which comes with stealth capabilities and a little shock blaster that can knock out enemies, or some areas of the map will have a little box that you can summon a drone from, and you can use that. But basically, it crawls through small vents, and all the CTOS systems have like a little what looks like a Ethernet jack that the spider just puts its head into and hacks into. And it gets a double jump if you have your custom one. It runs really fast. The only
maybe maybe this is a later edition that you get, but do you already have, or do you think there's a possibility of this little spider drone having a weapon?
Oh, so there is an alternate spider drone, like I think it's called a spider turret, and it has an automatic turret that fires at enemies. I have not unlocked it yet.
Yes.
I haven't unlocked it yet, but you see it on the upgrade screen.
Unbelievable. I again, there's a game that I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with called James Bond Everything or Nothing for the PS2. It had a spider drone that looks remarkably similar to the one I've seen in Watch Dogs Legion, and it was my favorite part of that game. And it had I either had like a little gun or a little laser thing that you could shoot at people, and it was so fun to just like skitter around and just like mess with people in that game. And that when I saw that in the Watch Dogs Legion trailer, I was like, that is all I'm going to do. So yeah, maybe leave it there for now in terms of the Legion discussion. You'll get a little bit more playtime with it, and you'll be able to flesh out your thoughts a bit more, maybe. Unless there's anything else you want to mention real quick.
No, I just want to mention that if you're thinking of buying the game, wait just a little bit for the bugs to be patched out. Mm-hmm. I bought it day 2, day 1, whatever you want to call it, because I wanted to try and play it and get my thoughts and review out. But unfortunately, I'm unable to do that due to getting like 1 hour play sessions before I crash.
Yeah. Super annoying. But hopefully that gets fixed and we can judge the game based on the merits of its design and such. Mm-hmm. So that's what we've been playing. Real quick, I want to talk to you as well, Keith, about Final Fantasy XVI and where you're at with that. We just saw the release of some concept art and character art that, and also the key art that they've been sharing with people and giving a little bit more insight into this very interesting turn for the series. Describe briefly what they have revealed so far and why, if you are excited, then why you're excited.
So far they've released the teaser site for Final Fantasy XVI. And on there is basic lore of all the areas, concept art, information about our main characters, and stuff like that. And it's looking like it's returning back to the high fantasy area of, Final Fantasy, the old Final Fantasies 1 through 4 or 5, whatever you want.
The fantasy in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it's returning to the fantasy, not fantasy sci-fi.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that trailer instantly grabbed a lot of people. Because of how different it was from what we've seen recently. And I think a lot of people drew comparisons between what was shown and The Witcher 3. I don't know if you played The Witcher 3. How valid do you think those comparisons are?
I have not seen enough out of the Awakening trailer that they put out. But to me, it looks more DMC rather than Witcher.
Yeah, I think the comparisons to Witcher 3 are mainly just because everyone's played The Witcher 3 at this point, whereas a fraction of that community has actually played Devil May Cry.
Well, I think as well, it's not necessarily because of the combat, because I do get what you're saying with Devil May Cry. I think it's the tone that the world is going for with its dark fantasy, and also just like small things like costumes and the way characters present themselves, and sort of the idea that like a lot of this world is going to be not nice, to put it lightly. And sort of that's what I got Witcher 3 wise from the trailer I've seen. I don't know if it'll open up to other sections of the game where it's more light fantasy, bit more jolly, but who knows. But definitely the combat is DMC reminiscent. Tim and Keith, does that excite you in terms of like how different the gameplay is going to be this time?
It's not even just that the combat looks like DMC combat. I can't remember if we've talked about it. I feel like we have. the combat director is a hire from Capcom, who was the director for
Right.
DMC5 and Dragon's Dogma.
Perfect.
That's
Oh, I was going to say, so yeah, that's got me excited at the very least. I haven't gotten to play Dragon's Dogma, but that's probably the place where most people would get their Witcher comparisons.
And yeah, I could see where they're coming from for it being witchery, very dark fantasy. Most of fantasy up for now, outside of Dragon's Dogma and stuff like that, hasn't really been that too dark. If you're not counting, the Dark Souls, being dark.
Mm-hmm.
That fantasy RPG, especially Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy has had its dark moments recently.
Mm-hmm.
But it's mostly been pretty lighthearted in comparison to how dark we're going now.
Yeah. And so, I feel like there was an instant. I feel like for a lot of people, especially like people I know, there is a hesitance to be interested anytime the name Final Fantasy is attached to anything, because of, again, how long the series is and how unusual that is with other, like, especially with Western releases, but just in general, like, it's rare you see 16 in a game title. But like, I feel like the trailer did a lot right with making this just feel different and making it feel like, I know Final Fantasy games are largely all different from each other, for the most part, but this did feel like it was for people who maybe have never touched a Final Fantasy game either since 7, say, or at all. I feel like you could get those people with a good, well-directed marketing campaign. But also, and I don't understand the ins and outs of this, but I remember you guys being excited about the talk of the crystals and killing off the crystals as part of this trailer. So yeah, there's definitely, I can already see, like, there's a direct appeal to the longtime fans of the series as well. So yeah, does that aspect of it excite you? The again, I don't know what killing off the crystals means, but it got you guys hyped at the time.
So in Final Fantasy and the older ones, it's usually the bad guys who are going to try to destroy the crystal in order to either merge the world with some other alternate world or gain ultimate power or return some ancient evil back to life to restore this body. It varies like that. And this time around, your protagonist is claiming to want to destroy the crystals. We don't know if he's officially going to do it or not because, well, we don't have much more detail. But this is seemingly a first where you're going to be actively being more of an anti-hero.
Mm-hmm.
And did either of you get the chance to fully read through PlayStation's blog post on it?
I didn't read it because it was all gibberish to me. But like I glanced over the text and basically we're just looking at the art. But I have always loved Final Fantasy's art. That's just been a major positive for me.
Okay, and so Keith, did you get to read into it at all?
I didn't read through the blog post. It's been mostly on the teaser site.
Okay, so they did clarify a few things too in that blog post. So one, we know that the character we see at the beginning and the very end of the trailer, and the character we see in the middle are the same person. It's just different points in time. And we know that our main character is, in fact, the older brother of that Joshua kid.
Mm-hmm.
And we learned how the icons and the dominants interact, which is that basically every country has, you see it in one of the pieces of key art there, every country has a giant mother crystal that they are basically in possession of. And every country is fighting over these mother crystals, and they've just attained an uneasy peace from constantly skirmishing. So Joshua is the dominant of Phoenix, and dominants become the icon or summon that they are the dominant of. so they will physically fight as that being. So, like, at the end of that trailer, when we see Phoenix fighting Ifrit, that would physically be Joshua fighting Ifrit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the teaser site mentions that as well.
Okay. So, the big thing with killing the crystals is, as far as we can tell, the crystals are what give the powers of the icon, essentially. And so this also plays into, from what I can tell, be the main character's moveset. I think they're going to go a very Devil May Cry route with this, where it's as you defeat a dominant, you then take the powers of the icon for yourself, which is why you see him using things like Titan Fists for punching, or like Garuda Claws, the Phoenix Feather, like all of this kind of stuff.
Sick. So in terms of looking forward to this game, I think we talked a little bit about this somewhere else before, but very briefly, Square Enix games and Final Fantasy games have been notorious for dropping a teaser trailer and then just like letting them sit for 5 years. How close do you think this game is, Keith?
So Naoki Yoshida, the producer for this game, he specifically said in an interview he's tired of that joke that, Square Enix has dropped a trailer for Final Fantasy. It's going to be in development for another 48 years. So he specifically made all the cutscenes and stuff in the trailer in engine to show how far along in development it is. And we've also heard that it's also been in development for about 4 years now. So I'm expecting this relatively soon, late 2021, maybe early 2022.
Okay.
And I would say I agree with that, because I think in maybe the same interview, either that or another interview, I think Yoshida also mentioned the game is further along than people think it is. And if they're doing with their marketing what I think they're doing, I think they're making a good move and not oversaturating with advertisement. So that next big announcement that they've talked about in 2021 may just be like the dropping of a release date, or at least a release window.
Okay. So yeah, hopefully not too long to wait on that one. Good things. So yeah, that's what video games we've been playing. We've been talking about what we've been playing for. We've been talking about video games for a few hours now. I'm wondering if you guys are interested to play a little game here.
Okay.
The excitement is palpable. No, okay, so
my hesitation is palpable. Because I imagine it'll be a bet.
I realize to your guys it sounds like the beginning of Saw, but I swear this is purely wholesome and jolly. So I'm going to make a stab here and assume, because this is a very British thing, I'm going to assume you guys have never heard of the show Only Connect.
No.
Alright. So Only Connect is a game show on the BBC, and it's a show I've been binging actually a lot because a lot of episodes are on YouTube, and it's a very interesting tech and a game show for me. I sort of wanted to try it here with you guys and see how it works. So the idea is basically there are two teams competing against each other, and each gets a question at one time. So the idea is I, as the host, have 4 clues in front of me. And these 4 clues are linked in some way. So I'll give you the first clue, and based on that, you have to try and guess what the connecting thread is, right? So I give you the first clue. You might not have a big idea because it's just one thing. So then you say, okay, give me the next clue. And then you suddenly have 2 clues. There might be a bit of a pattern there. So you're like, okay, give me the next clue. So you try and guess the connecting thread between all of them. If you guess the thread correctly with just 1 clue revealed, you get 5 points. If 2 clues are revealed, you get 3 points. 3 clues revealed 2 points, and all the clues revealed you get 1 point if you guess it correctly. So that's what I took a video game spin on that idea, and I'm going to have you two compete today to see who is the winner of this episode of Playdate. So just to make sure we have the rules, I have a test example here. Both of you guys can answer this question if you feel like you know it. So I have 4 clues. There's a connecting thread between all of them. So I'll reveal the first clue. The first clue is bolts. The word bolts. Does that spur anything in either of your heads? Okay. So yeah, that's not the connecting thread, but good guess. So the second clue is Robux. So you've got bolts and Robux. Anything from that? Okay, moving on. Third clue is bells. So you've got bolts, Robux, and bells. So you're thinking in terms of video games. Yes, that's correct. The connecting thread is all fictional video game currencies. Bolts, you were correct from Ratchet and Clank. Robux is Roblox. And bells are Animal Crossing. The fourth one was going to be rupees. I thought that would be the dead giveaway. Okay. But yeah, while looking this up, it's interesting. Apparently, $1 can get you 400 Robux. that's the currency exchange on that. Okay, so that was a good test run. I feel like you guys get the game now. So yeah, I'm going to give each of you your own questions. So this first one's going to be for Tim. If Tim doesn't get it by the end and he's just like completely stumped, I'll pass it over to Keith, and he can maybe get a point if he guesses the answer correctly. So this first one is for you, Tim. So, clue number 1. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, 99.
Okay, I mean, all I can think of is like landmark games at the moment.
Okay. Next clue, and you tell me when you want the next clue, by the way.
Alright.
So, second clue is Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, 98.
Okay, so I'm thinking Nintendo 64.
Okay, that is not it. Do you want the third clue?
Yeah, let's go for that.
Okay. So, clue number 3 is GTA 4, 98. This is a difficult one to start with, I'll grant it. Okay.
So, you said GTA 4?
Yeah.
Okay, so wrong release years?
No. Yeah, I get why you went release years. Just going over the game. Ocarina of Time, 99. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, 98. GTA 4, also 98. I don't think that's correct for any of them, but no, yeah, that is not it. So the fourth clue, I'm assuming you want it, is Soul Calibur, 98. Yeah, this is a difficult one.
Is it like the year that they first went 3D? Or, well, no, it's not Tony Hawk yet.
I'm going to give you one more guess before I pass it over to Keith.
Nah, I'd say I'm stumped on that one.
Alright, Keith, do you have any idea what these numbers mean? So I'll go over the clues again. Ocarina of Time, 99. Tony Hawk Pro Skater, 98. Or Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, 98. GTA 4, 98. Soul Calibur, 98.
Talking about Metacritic score?
You're right in that. I'm going to give you the point. So these are the top ranking games of all time on Metacritic and their Metacritic scores.
Okay. Yeah, and I've looked that up before. I should have known that.
Yeah. Do you guys know of interest what the highest, because none of these are PlayStation games, or at least PlayStation first party. Do you know what the number one PlayStation first party game is of all time on Metacritic?
No.
Hang on. Let me think for a second. Is it Shadow of the Colossus?
No, it is not. At least I think it's not. I was pretty sure on this. It's Uncharted 2, followed very closely by the first Gran Turismo game, which I thought was weird. But you have to go all the way down to 96 to get to Uncharted. I assume you're looking that up right now in case I got Shadow of the Colossus wrong.
Well, and I can fully believe that Shadow of the Colossus would have made it on there.
I think it was 95. I think I remember seeing Shadow of the Colossus on that list. How you get to a 99 at all? I don't think any new release could get to a 99. I think that's purely dependent on
nostalgia.
Games media being smaller then, and also nostalgia. But I think in modern times where everyone is a critic, if any game gets a good score, you're going to have the person that's just like, I don't like it. And I'm going to tell people about it.
I think what threw me off there is the fact that Soul Calibur is number 4
Soul
on
Calibur's
that list.
number 4. Mm-hmm. The original Soul Calibur, yeah. Very weird. Okay, so Keith is currently 1-0 up on you right now from stealing that point. So this next question is for Keith, so we can extend his lead even further. Okay. Clue number 1 is Captain Rainbow.
I'm gonna need the next clue.
Okay. Clue number 2 is Jump Ultimate Stars.
We're
I
talking
should say
about
as well.
horrible games.
No. I very quickly at this integer, are you familiar with either of the 2 games I mentioned?
No.
Okay. I probably shouldn't have said they are games. They could have been anything, but I'll give you that one. Number 3 is Dragon Quest X.
Hey. Games on the 3DS?
No. I'm going to give you the 4th clue, and this might give it to you. So, we've currently got Captain Rainbow, Jump Ultimate Stars, and Dragon Quest X. The 4th clue is Mother 3.
Games that never came out in America.
Boom, got it. Fucking nailed it. That's another point for Keith. Nice one. Yeah, these are games that never got a official Western release. So, Tim, just on the off chance, do you have any idea what Captain Rainbow is? So Captain Rainbow is a game by the team behind Chibi Robo. It's this game about this kid superhero, sort of like Shazam, where like he says his power word and he turns into this like big buff superhero, but most of the time he's a kid. And he's on the quest he lost his belt that gives him his superpower, so he's on a quest to go find it again. He shows up on this island, and the gimmick is that he's now trying to basically grant wishes and help all the people of this island with their problems. The fun part about this island is it's filled with obscure Nintendo characters. So, like, you'll be helping out Little Mac, and he is, like, all, like, fat and old now, and he wants to get back into boxing, and so you need to help him get fit. Or, like, other characters you see, like, the soldiers from Famicom Wars, or Birdo from Mario. What else was there? There was another one.
Looks like there's piranha plants.
Yeah, piranha plants are there. And so it's just this weird island of like goofballs and characters that a lot of people might not know, but are like official Nintendo characters.
Rudolph's Island of Misfit Toys for Nintendo characters.
Exactly. Who else was there? Oh yeah, Osan, which is apparently the name for the character you play as in NES Golf. He's there, just tagging out.
Old man.
Yeah. And so I feel like that's the reason that never got released in the West, is because like the Western audiences won't know these characters, even less so the Japanese audiences. But I feel like that's a game now I want to go play. I think it has a translation. So like going to this weird island of misfits of Nintendo characters sounds super fun to me. And then the other one I thought would be a shoe-in for you two is Jump Ultimate Stars. Any guess on what that is based on the title?
It's Shonen Jump characters.
Yes, it is a giant fighting game crossover of Shonen Jump characters.
Yeah, the precursor to Jump Force and all of its terribleness.
Right. And so yeah, that never got a Western release, and then Dragon Quest X and Mother 3 were like the stickouts, I think.
Yeah.
So Keith is on 2 now. So yeah, next question for Tim. Okay. First clue is Ghost Babel or Ghost Babel.
So Ghost Babel, like Tower of Babel?
Babel. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, next clue.
Peace Walker.
Okay, so Metal Gear Solid.
I'm going to need a little more. What specifically are these two?
Is it PSP games?
I think you're thinking too broadly. I'm going to... Well, if you want the third clue, I'll give you the third clue.
Yeah.
The third clue is Revengeance. And I'm being very specific.
So...
I don't want to give you any hints, but like, you're so close.
Like Metal Gear spin-offs?
I don't know if I should give you the point. Because I think I will give it to you, because what I was going for is specifically subtitles in the Metal Gear series.
Oh,
which is why
okay.
I didn't include the Metal Gear Solid bit at the start of everyone. But yeah, Ghost Babel is a game I never heard of. It came out for the DS. Peace Walker, a game people know. Revengeance. And that's why it wasn't Metal Gear Solid, it was Metal Gear. And Snake Eater was going to be the fourth one, which I thought would be a dead giveaway. But
yeah,
you were close enough there. I think I'll give you the point. So that's the point for you. So yeah, next one is for Keith. And this is a very difficult one, but I feel like I'd give Tim a very difficult one down the line as well. So clue number 1 is Aegean Sea, God of War.
Repeat that?
Aegean Sea,
or Aegean,
God of War.
Depending on how you pronounce
Aegean,
it.
yeah. I pronounced Aegean because Egg is shield.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Aegean or Aegean. So do you want the next clue?
Yes.
Guessing you're not getting a lot from that. Clue number 2 is Pathfinder Call of Duty.
World maps?
No. You're on the right lines though. Clue number 3 is Pillar of Autumn Halo.
I guess the hub world.
No. I'm going to give you the fourth clue, and if you can't get it, I'm going to pass it to Tim. Clue number 4 is Green Hill Zone Sonic.
Oh, first
the
level.
Hedgehog. Yes. Yep. You got it. These are the first levels ever in each game series. So Aegean Sea is the first mission of God of War, Pathfinder, the original Call of Duty is the first mission you have there, and then Pillar of Autumn and Halo, and Green Hill Zone being like the stick-out one.
I'm sad that I was pretty confident on Pathfinder. Like, I was somewhat confident on Aegean Sea, because I was like, wait, no, that's not where you fight Ares. You start out there and you kill all the Hydra heads or sea serpents or whatever they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 100%. Tim was clued in there. So yeah, but the scores, however, reflect Keith in the lead by 2. Score's currently 3-1. So Tim needs to do some work to pull it back. This next one for you, Tim, I really like this one. It's probably my favourite.
Okay.
Clue number 1 is Project Cafe.
Indie games?
No.
Okay.
Clue number 2?
Yeah.
Oh,
I was just going to say, I'll take next clue.
Okay. Clue number 2 is Orbis. Orbis. Orbis.
Man, I need another clue.
Okay. Clue number 3 is Dolphin.
These
You've
emulators?
got Project Cafe, Orbis, Dolphin. No, these are not emulators, but I like where your head's at.
Oh, are they the prototype names for various consoles?
Yes, that is 2 points for Tim. Yes. Could you name what each of them are? Just for like fun. Do you know what Project Cafe is?
I know Dolphin is the GameCube. That I 100% know.
Yeah.
Project Cafe, is that like the DS or something?
Close. It is the Wii.
Okay.
Which seems like a very weird name for that. And then Orbis, do you remember?
That I actually don't know.
That is the PS4, its original prototype name.
Okay.
The number 4 clue is going to be Scorpio. Again, I tried to make the number 4 clues the dead giveaways because you're only getting a point. But yeah. Does it? One of the other things I was looking this up is the code name for the PS4 Pro was Neo, and the PSVR was Morpheus. So they were definitely going with a theme there. The other thing as well is Sega named all their systems after planets, right? The Saturn was called Jupiter for some reason, but they're all named after planets like Venus and such. But yeah, I just love the possibilities that a code name can instill in your mind. Like Xbox One's original one was Durango, and it's just like, what could that be? And it's just a black box, whatever.
No big.
And I might not know Dolphin if I wasn't one fairly well versed in like the emulation community, and two if I hadn't looked into dev kits for things like the PS2 and the GameCube.
Yeah. You said emulators, and that was like, Dolphin is the emulator for that, and yeah, you were on the right lines, but you just needed a little bit more. So yeah, this Tim ties the score up 3-3. This next one for Keith. So clue number 1 is Rocket League 5th.
Okay, I'm gonna need another clue.
Okay. Clue number 2 is Chrono Trigger 25th.
Their anniversaries.
Yes, nailed it. That is 3 points, bringing Nike up to 6. I was trying to send you the wrong way there. I was hoping you'd think it's some sort of list where they rank, but no, it's anniversaries for games this year. So Rocket League is its 5th anniversary. Chrono Trigger's 25. The third clue is going to be Pac-Man with 40th, and then what I was hoping would be the dead giveaway is Sega with 60th. But no, yeah, a lot of big anniversaries this year.
Chrono Trigger's not getting anything for it.
No, highly disappointing. So Keith is in a commanding lead going into the final round. Since these are the last questions for each of you, so I'm going to pose a new rule now. If you guess and you guess wrong, I immediately give all 4 clues to the other person and let them have a go. So be very careful with just blurring out answers. And yeah, just if you need the next clue, just say next clue, but don't blur out answers, otherwise you might give a point to your opponent. So, Tim, number 1, this is another one where it's numbers next to things. Clue number 1 is Subway Surfers, 360 million.
I think I can get that one already. Well...
Are you confident?
So I think I can get it, but there's a portion of specificity that I'm worried about.
Okay, if you're in the region of it, I'm only give you the points.
Okay, number of downloads on the App Store.
No, that's not close enough. Okay.
Okay, so the reason I was worried about specificity was I didn't know if you wanted the Apple App Store or the Android App Store. Or...
Yeah, no, I would have given you the points, but no, this is you were totally off base there. So I'm going to give all the clues to Keith, and he gets a point if he gets this right now. So, Keith, the clues are Subway Surfers, 360 million. Minecraft, 149 million. Angry Birds Rio, 117 million. Clash of Clans, 113 million.
Players?
No, no one gets that point.
These are say it's gross revenue.
No, not that either. I think Clash of Clans would earn way more than that, actually. No, this is the most viewed game trailers on YouTube
of
all time. So, first of all, 3 of them are mobile games and the other one is Minecraft.
Wait, Minecraft had a... Well...
Minecraft has an official trailer that is sitting at 149 million views on YouTube.
Oh my god. The others,
yeah,
I
Subway
imagine,
Surfers.
but I imagine the mobile ones were forced because ad views.
I guess, but like even I've never heard of Subway Surfers, and that's
I've heard of Subway Surfer
a long way. It's like a dumb mobile game. It's like Temple Run. You're just like scooting about there. Why is that double Minecraft? It's a little depressing, but I guess. Okay, so no one got the point there. I think mathematically Keith has already won, so this is just for sheer bonus points now. So yeah, this one, clue number 1, Keith, is aggro. A-G-R-O, aggro.
I'm gonna need the next clue.
Clue number 2 is Epona. Or
Horses.
Epona, depending.
The video game horses.
I'm going to give you the point, because those were both horses. These are video game mounts. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, it's video game mounts. So that's another 3 points. So with a commanding victory, Keith wins 9-3. You're the winner of this episode of Playdate. What that means is entirely up to you, but that was fun for me.
And whether our viewers see it is entirely up to them.
There's a bonus one here that I didn't include in the actual quiz, but yeah, there's if you guys want to have a go on it, either of you can put in as quickly as you realize it. So let me just pull up the. Okay, so clue number 1 is April 16th. Okay. Clue number 2 is September 17th. Guessing nothing so far.
No.
Clue number 3 then is November 19th.
Cyberpunk delays.
These are all the dates for Cyberpunk that have been release dates.
Yeah.
So yeah, April 16th was the first one, September 17th, November 19th, and yeah, the final one, December 10th, or at least we hope it's the final one. I enjoyed that game. I don't know if you guys got as much enjoyment as I did, but it was very fun being in the know about all those things. There's an even more brilliant way you can do that game as well, where the 4 clues are in sequence, and so you give them the first 3 and they have to guess what the 4th one in that sequence is going to be. I thought I would tone it down for this one, but maybe in a future episode I'll torture you with that. So yeah, that has been Playdate. Congrats to Keith on winning this episode. He owns it. It's his. You can catch more of our stuff on the Playhouse YouTube channel. We do live streams as well on twitch.tv/Playhouse Live. Every Saturday, me and John do a talk show about the video game news, which also goes up in podcast form. You can check out all of our written content at entertheplayhouse.com. Thanks to Tim and Keith for appearing in this episode and putting up with my nonsense. And we'll see you for the next episode in December. Until then, see ya.
Have a good day.
Bye.